passengers, also slightly injured. About 90 feet of concrete on the train platform in Westbury, New York, smashed by one of the trains. The Long Island Railroad says service for morning commuters could be affected. The man who once served President Trump as his personal attorney testifies to Congress again on Wednesday.
The House Oversight Committee will hold a public hearing to explore non-Russia-related issues that grew out of the Cohen prosecution in the Southern District of New York. House Committee Democrats say they'll ask about payments made while Trump was running for president to silence women who claim to have had affairs with him, charges the president denies.
Fox's Catherine Herridge. On Tuesday, Cohen gave 7 hours of closed-door testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee. That's the same committee he's admitted lying to in 2017. House Democrats planning to push legislation expanding background checks for every gun purchase in the country.
Back in control of the House after 8 years, Democrats plan to advance legislation to tighten background check requirements.
It is reflective of our changing national conversation around gun violence.
Freshman Georgia Democrat Lucy McBath's son died in a shooting in 2012. The legislation would require background checks on all firearm sales and transfers and extend background check reviews from 3 days to 10, closing the so-called Charleston loophole. There are no plans to take up the bills in the Senate. President Trump has threatened a veto, concluding the measures do not sufficiently protect Second Amendment rights. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Wall Street Tuesday, the Dow down nearly 34 points. The NASDAQ and the S&P 500 lower as well. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Attention homeowners, MRE solar energy systems now come with battery storage for zero money down. This means that your home will have power even when the island power isn't available, like during power outages or during and after storms. The inconvenience of not having power for your home is a thing of the past. It's solar with battery storage exclusively by Micronesia Renewable Energy. Don't be left in the dark. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution getting us started on today's edition of Tall Tales. Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 27th of February, 4 in the afternoon. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, who returns in 8 days. All right. Thank you. Yes. And we're eagerly waiting for his return. He gave me something that we're going to have during the card portion of today's show. When we get to the card, and that'll be an interesting read, something to consider that he sent me. And so don't have anything for the Second Amendment, but you just did hear on Fox News that the Congress is preparing to take up legislation, federal legislation, on lengthening the time period for background checks. And so we'll be bringing you more about that in tomorrow's program, since that's today's news, and so it'll be out tomorrow, and so we'll bring you more details about that. For those of you who have been expecting to hear about the legislature's voting this afternoon on the bills before it, they were supposed to come into session at 4:30. They changed that to 2:30. They've already voted. And so would you like to hear what the vote was on Bill 30-35 on the GRMC question? And that was 13-0. 13-0. And we'll get into more details about that. But I was listening to a friend tell me about the vote. He was witnessing the vote. Gave me a call as I was on my way into the station over the past half hour. And so all that's left is for the governor or acting governor to sign it into law, and it'll be the directions to the negotiating team for GovGuam health insurance benefits for the next year. And then I'll have, I'll talk about it. We actually have in the Zami Ikani portion of the show, the Guam Daily Post editorial today is Senators pause consideration of special interest legislation. And so maybe it's already a done deal, but perhaps there's even more to this than meets the eye, and we'll find out from what Adelup wants. Since BBMR didn't assist the legislature in its deliberations, maybe some things going on here that we that more than meets the eye. I'm wondering about this. But let's go ahead with the editorial all the same. And before I read the editorial, I'm gonna let you know that there was that Bill 3035 was portrayed as an irresponsible taxpayer ripoff by Ken Leon Guerrero in a letter that he wrote to all of the senators this morning at 7:20. And so you may have heard him on Ray Gibson's show this morning, and it didn't matter to them his approach to it. Let's see what the editorial at the Guam Daily Post has to say, and it goes like this. There's no doubt that the only private hospital on Guam, Guam Regional Medical City, will receive a financial boost if Bill 30-35, which was the subject of debate by island senators for the second day Tuesday, becomes law. Under Bill 30, the government of Guam would require health insurance providers to cover health care at GRMC for GovGuam employees and retirees and their dependents. Take Care, which opposes this, has stated this could cost GovGuam, and by extension taxpayers, an extra $15 million or so on top of the $90 million cost now. GRMC disputes this and also argues it provides specialized services that benefit the community. As the senators started the debate on Bill 30, there's at least recognition from some of the senators that the cost is either unknown or there is the real possibility that the cost of GovGuam's health insurance could escalate, a tab that taxpayers will ultimately bear. Thank goodness for senators who would like the legislature to get a better picture of the potential cost before pushing this legislation through. We trust that the main author of this legislation, Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, will withdraw Bill 30 until the cost estimates are clear. And that's just one of the many reasons to pause this potential gravy train for the private hospital. If GovGuam employees, retirees, and dependents have the option to choose private hospital care on the island without having to pay a higher insurance premium for that choice, many of them would go to GRMC over the government-run Guam Memorial Hospital. The effect of Bill 30 would be to send fiscally ailing GMH into a financial tailspin. The government hospital would be left with more patients who don't have GovGuam health insurance at a time when it is already having a tough time collecting payments from people who seek care without health insurance. Just this Monday, as the senators were to start the debate on Bill 30, Public Auditor Benjamin Cruz released an audit report that found that 90% of the bills GMH sends to self-pay or uninsured patients go unpaid. The audit further highlighted the precarious financial situation GMH is in, even before Bill 30's effects could play out. In a period of less than 2 years, almost $20 million in hospital bills went unpaid. Multiply that by many years, and it's only a matter of time before GMH could fold. There's something ironic in the two events occurring Monday at the Public Auditor's Office and the legislature. GMH is supposed to be the priority public health care issue for our community, or so we heard from those who were running for senator not too many months ago. Yet, instead of taking up the myriad GMH problems first, the senators are immersed in legislation that will benefit GRMC. It doesn't have to continue that way. Senators, you know the right path. You just need to show the public you're willing to take it. That is the Guam Daily Post editorial today. And that's a nice hard-hitting editorial. And while I was reading that, let's see, I hope I printed it out, because I was just really impressed enough to, oh, didn't I? Let's see if I can find it on my computer, because I'll tell you, this is, I have a burning desire to wax poetic about this. And if I've got it, let's see, comment. Yeah. Somehow if I didn't, okay, let me see. I didn't finish it. But this is what I was reading, what I was writing as I was reading the Post editorial. The Post editorial could have been great, but instead the Post editorial could have been great, but instead the Post was sucked up into the spin machine. Despite the Post's editorial board's lack of doubt, when it says, there's no doubt that the only private hospital on island, that's a lead-off line. Despite their lack of doubt, it is not certain that GRMC will receive a, quote, financial boost from Bill number 30, that it would not receive anyway in the course of everyday health care delivery. I don't think this bill is necessary because I love, and this is me talking, your host, I love GRMC services and have the opposite opinion of the only health company on island at odds with GRMC. And that, of course, is FHP. And I've been a subscriber to FHP before, Take Care, FHP in the past. And I have also just finished taking my dad out from GRMC. He was there last week. So I'm familiar with this stuff, and for, as a consumer. Bill 30 is special interest because it calls on FHP and Take Care to join all other providers, except perhaps GMH, to put medical care before business success. Has the FHP Take Care CEO accurately projected GovGuam employee and retiree benefit costs compared to a legion of GovGuam accountants? Maybe the GovGuam accountants don't know, but that's why the legislature is a co-equal branch of government with oversight powers. They're supposed to ferret these details out. The Post editors. Okay, I've got a call on line 1, and I'm going to take a break from this, but I will return to this, my perspective on this editorial. I mean, I oppose the bill, but not on these grounds. Let's see what the caller on line 1 has to say. Welcome to Tall Tales.
How you doing, Darryl? This is Tom.
Hello, Tom. Welcome to Tall Tales. Glad to hear from you today. What's on your mind?
Anyway, I believe the auditor that there's almost $20 million uncollected for the hospital, right?
Yes.
But my question is now, how can we collect from these people when they absolutely don't have any money at all? The old saying goes is that you cannot get blood out of a turnip. We cannot arrest them and send them to jail because it's unconstitutional. We cannot send people to prison for debt. It's unconstitutional. If they don't work, they have no income. They have absolutely no asset for us to forfeit. What can we do about collecting it? We, the taxpayers that are able to afford our own health insurance, we'll wind up having to foot the bill for them. But no matter how many collection agencies the hospital hires, the collection agency can go out there to the shack where they live and try to collect something, but if they don't have anything to collect, what are we going to do? Are we going to confiscate their pig, their hen? You see what I'm getting at?
I do, but let me give you another perspective on this, okay?
All right.
Because this is something that the public auditor was saying, but it doesn't come through clearly. And that is that GMH hasn't made an effort to collect from any self-pay patients, even the ones who can pay. They just haven't been trying to collect. And they go to the, and then they want the legislature.
Maybe they have been trying.
No. They found that they haven't even made the effort to collect. That's what the public auditor found. Even though there are people on payroll who are responsible for doing these tasks, the tasks are not being done because they have been reassigned to other functions in the hospital. It doesn't happen. And even yesterday I was talking about how in my own experience, when my two sons were born, each time I couldn't get a straight answer out of them, so I wouldn't pay them because they couldn't tell me. They couldn't tell me how much the bill was. They couldn't tell me, and this was a self-pay, right? And I had enough money to pay it. They wouldn't tell me how much the bill was. They gave me a bill that kept changing. They couldn't tell me that I was finding things on there that were not given to my wife, and they couldn't take them off. They just left it the way it was. And then when they garnished my tax refunds, they did not credit me with having paid the bill. And this was over a period of years. And I kept going in and trying to straighten this out. I was trying to pay the bill, and they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle me. They couldn't take my questions. They didn't know. Internally, they couldn't. The business office didn't talk to the records department. And nobody could, no supervisor would entertain my reasonable requests. And so if you take this kind of a situation and you transfer it over to a collection agency, the same questions can go to the collection agent when the agent walks into court. And the patient says, "Can you give me a straight bill? Has the bill been examined to make sure there are no errors? Can you say that this definitely there's nothing on here that's not supposed to be here? And also, are all of these charges a part of your current authorized fee schedule?" And that's what BJ found, that if you were to challenge any of the bills, you would win. And GMH hasn't picked up a finger to address any of this for over 20 years. And they just keep marching down to the legislature. And what this becomes is that people without health insurance have health insurance at GMH in the form of a legislative subsidy every year. But it's hard to manage a hospital like that because you don't know how much your shortfall will be, and you don't ever have enough money to pay vendors. And so the vendors start jacking up your prices, and so your prices start changing, for your supplies and whatnot, even your doctors. And when you go to Medicare and you try to get a reimbursement, they go, if you aren't even charging if you're not even charging people the fees that are authorized, if the fees that you are putting on the billings are not even the fees that are legally authorized by the legislature, then we're not going to increase your reimbursement. We're going to, Remember that story?
The subsidy that you were talking about a second ago, that's the MIP, right?
No, the legislature, whenever they go to the legislature and say we need 15 million, then now it's up to like 25 million a year that they need.
Oh.
And that is not only because of self-pay. It's also because they have inflated cost because of vendors not wanting to sell to them except at a premium price, and also they want cash in advance, or they want to charge like 12% a month or something like that, 12% a year for unpaid bills, or they're stacking they're stacking the hospital with staff, but they're not buying the equipment that the staff need to actually do the work, so they're just sitting there getting paid with their thumbs up their butts. Remember the hearings that went around a year ago, and that one doctor came in? She said, "I was hired to do this job, but because the suite is not ready for me to do my job, I'm on payroll, but I just keep going back and forth to the states. I'm just keep waiting for them to figure it all out. But under the contract, they're paying me." And this kind of malarkey, multiply that by 100. That's GMH. That's a problem, and it's not going to be solved by Bill 30. Bill 30 has to do with GovGuam's own health insurance negotiations. And I've been against the bill. Now, you're concerned with GMH. I am too. But today's news has to do with GRMC. If GRMC didn't exist, we'd be trying to stabilize patients and get them onto planes to take them elsewhere for lots of different reasons. And yes, GMH is improving. The medical care that is there is good. The finances are the responsibility of the administrators and the legislature and the legislative committee that oversees health. And they have been just failing at their jobs, but they all get paid, and they all pat themselves on the back on how well things are going at GMH. They're taking credit for what the doctors are doing, but they are not operating that hospital competently. Some have tried, and they meet resistance somewhere else in that governance system, administration and governance. And the legislature isn't holding the governor responsible. They're not overseeing it. They're not digging in, because they're being blackmailed. Oh, if you attack GMH, you're attacking the healthcare system that we have going on up here. No, they got to peel off, they got to crowbar off those administrators who are wrapping themselves in the flag and saying, you can't shoot me because you're shooting the flag. And they have to really do some work to separate this out. BJ's started it. Other people have started it. But there has to be more people working on this problem, because it's a problem. And that's only one part of the whole healthcare system on the island. There's still public health, and there's the GovGuam health insurance contract, and the negotiating base, and how much is appropriated.
Keeping track of the war that's going on about the GovGuam employees health insurance program. That's why I haven't been calling anything about it, whether I'm against it or for it, because I haven't been keeping up to it. Mm-hmm. I was only calling in because I was trying to figure out what the auditor said, that that there's still almost $20 million uncollected for GMH, and I was trying to figure out how can we collect from these people if they don't have it. But you did say that GMH hasn't even made any attempt at all to try to collect from the people that can pay. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people getting away with it, right? When they know that they can pay, it's just that they know that GovGuam's not going to be able to come up to them, so they just don't bother to pay the hospital.
That's right. And also, they aren't giving the bills. Yeah. They aren't calling them up and saying, we expect this, when they did. When they were taking this is back, I had two boys, one born in 2003, one born in 2006, at the end of 6. And at that time, GMH was referring bills up to the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and the Department of Revenue and Taxation would garnish the tax returns. And they stopped taking my tax refunds by about 2015. But when I would go to the hospital with my documents and sit down in the business office and ask, let me see my whole bill and let me see how you are drawing down against what I owe the hospital. And they said, we don't have that information. And I can't deal with people like this.
You did not receive, right?
I'm sorry?
They were probably charging you for some services that you did not receive.
Well, at some point they stopped taking my refunds. I think that was in 2014 or 2015. They stopped taking my refunds. But the point of this is that we don't know, as a public, as taxpayers, we don't know how much money that they say that they can't collect, how much money they have collected, but they're still marching down to the legislature and saying, we need more money. They always need money because there's maintenance issues and whatnot, but it's not laid out rationally so that it can be examined, and then they say, okay, we're short this amount because of this. We're short over here because we have an aging plant and we have to do renovations. They do when it becomes water leaking through the fourth floor roof and it's getting into the audio, and or the electrical panels. They discover that they're past their service life for hospital safety code. This kind of thing. But they know this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like they're, I'm not talking about the doctors and nurses now. It looks like their management, they just don't have the knowledge to handle situations like this. Maybe an example of what's happening at the hospital is an example. I was thinking about that guy, that idiot, the DPW who's been paid for 13 years and not having to show up for work because he was faking an on-the-job injury. That's probably the same equal kind of stupidity that's going on.
Well, that man is really smart. He was able to outsmart a number of directors. But at GMH,
talking about the management of DPW is when I say the word stupidity, there's so much ignorance and incompetence in the management at the DPW, where the supervisors of that individual were just signing off on his timesheet, not knowing that he's not even here.
That's right.
He hasn't even shown up to work, but yet they're signing off on his timesheet.
They were the case against that employee was incompetently pursued. They should not have pursued it if there was something that could have been challenged successfully in court or at the Civil Service Commission. It's really clear. I've gone through those briefings at the Civil Service Commission about how to proceed. It's very clear because it's right there in black and white in the regulations, in the law, how you have to pursue job action against an employee for cause. And it's there. But if you don't follow it, then 10 years later, the government of Guam, it won't be you, but it'll be the taxpayers are going to have to pay claims for back pay and all this stuff because of the incompetence of the administrators. At GMH, this is different. Those administrators at GMH are very, very familiar with these problems. They've been there for years. And to me, it's a game because they are very qualified to know what the problem is. And the problems have been identified, and it doesn't matter who's in charge. The game is the same.
What are they charging you with, and what is your final bill? Why can't they tell you that?
The people in the business office that have the details don't have a system. They are not responsible for making a system. The administrators up above are responsible for the system. But if I go to the administrators, they say, we can't talk to you about your particular account because that's down here in the business office, so let me bring you over here and you talk to them. And I talk to the business office and they say, sorry, we cannot cross-reference your account with collections or with another part of the system because we don't have access to that information. And it's it's a mess. But somebody's got to get in there and clean it up.
Get your blood pressure up.
Well, you are waking me up. This whole thing has been going on for a long time. Yeah. And it's not hidden. It's hiding in plain sight. And it doesn't help to say that people are incompetent, because I don't believe any of those people up at GMH in the administration or the governance are incompetent. It is convenient. It is convenient to allow things to keep going like this because it makes their job a lot easier. They've got money to spend on the priorities that they have, but those priorities may not be the same priorities that we in the public have. And as long as you can still go there to GMH and get medical service, then the administrative part sort of stays in the shadows. And the only time it comes up is when it's a public issue, when they're banging the desks down at the legislature demanding $25 or $45 million. And please leave us alone because we're doing good medicine. See, look at all these people in lab coats and scrubs, because they're with us. That is theater. It's theater, and it is a very competently played game. But we can't afford this. This government has to start carving down its expenses by tens of millions of dollars, and it has to maintain or improve the level of services, even as it's carving down in tens of millions of dollars. And it has to do it in various places. It has to do it with the tourist attraction funds, has to do it with health care, has to do it with the employee share of the health insurance. One way to drop that $90 million of cost to the government down, since they gave all the GovGuam employees a Hay study increase, just increase the percentage that the employees will pay out of their paychecks, because they can afford it. They're the employee share. Now, the tough one is the retirees, because the retirees are expensive, and there's a lot of them. And we're not going to solve it. We're not going to solve this today. Tom, you want to hang on? We're going to take a break here. Okay.
Okay, I'll hang on.
Okay, hang on. That's Tom online. We're going to take a break here because it's time for John Gibson, because he's digging up history.
John Gibson, digging up history. World War II, the German Blitz was on. A Nazi bomber had a straight shot at Buckingham Palace. How one RAF pilot saved the palace after this. Let's talk heirloom sheets and towels from Redland Cotton in Alabama. First, the family farm, growing the finest cotton in the world. The spinning, the looming, every step made in America, right down to the cutting and sewing. Sheets designed from a long-lost 1920s weave. The softest, most comfortable, longest-lasting sheets you've ever slept on. The Redland family, dedicated to America and linens you'll treasure. Check out redlandcotton.com for America's linen. redlandcotton.com. Now back to my story. September 15th, 1940, Hitler sent 400 bombers to attack London. To break the Brits' will to fight, Buckingham Palace was a prime target. Royal Air Force fighter pilots shot them down one after another. Sergeant Ray Holmes already shot down one bomber, but he was out of ammunition when he saw a German bomber making an unobstructed run at the palace. He didn't hesitate. He rammed his Hurricane fighter into the German bomber, shearing off its tail, and down it went in the road in front of the palace. Holmes parachuted to safety, and the palace was saved. Years later, asked what he was thinking ramming the German bomber, he said, "Nothing. Just go give them a bash." I'm John Gibson, digging up history.
Make the good things last longer. Get 3 more days for free on our 3-day prepaid rate plan. That's 6 days of unlimited local calls, SMS, and 1 gig of 4G LTE data per day for just $7.95. Text HS3 to 3282 from your Docomo Pacific prepaid phone to sign up today. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Gladdystone Entertainment and the stations of Choice Broadcasting present a roaring 20s party. Great Gatsby style. Get dressed up and party with the Miss and Mrs. Kirby Guam contestants. Saturday, March 2nd at Roots Bar and Grill. Tickets are $10 or $15 at the door with one free drink. Special thanks to Pitbull Empire, Local Promos, One Punch Media, The Hive, and Island Lux.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Yes, indeed. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in 8 days. 8 days. Well, I'm kind of in the middle of the Guam Daily Post editorial and the Zami Ikatni portion of the show. We've got Tom on the line, who's been we've been having a discussion about not just GRMC and FHP, but GMH, because this is a healthcare system altogether, and GovGuam contract for healthcare is the largest single contract, the largest single flush of money through the healthcare system on Guam. And it is really important to get the specifications right. This year, I don't know, Tom, if you know this, but this year, the GovGuam health insurance was rolled over from last year because they didn't have a successful negotiation, and there was some question about whether they were going to go to a single provider or allow it, like now, to have multiple providers, multiple health insurance companies, all taking a share of that $90 million total premiums bill and payments by the government of Guam. But they're saying that, at least BJ was saying when he was a speaker, that if we went to a single company, awarded the whole thing to one company, costs would drop. The cost of GovGuam would drop. And I'm not quite sure what the logic of that would be, but that's what was said. And what has been the issue here was that maybe FHP would win the bid if we didn't pass Bill number 30, win the bid, and then cut GRMC, with whom it's been having a feud for years, out of the healthcare business. So FHP, if it was going to have any hospital besides GMH touching its patients, they would be hospitals, its affiliated hospitals off island, and that would undercut GRMC's viability, and also it would require the government of Guam to pour money into GMH in order to handle all of the business. And all of the doctors who are not currently affiliated with FHP would lose their GovGuam patients, because all GovGuam would have to go to doctors affiliated with FHP.
Unless they're speaking that I heard from K57 News Talk Radio that Bill 30 already passed.
Yes, it did.
Yes votes.
Yes, it did, with 13-0.
Oh, man. So, but it's not law yet, until the governor or lieutenant governor signs it, right?
Right. And even if he does, what the bill does is directs the negotiating team, when they put out the announcement for the next year, 2020, health insurance for GovGuam employees, it will say, if the bill is signed into law, then they will say that any bidder for the GovGuam health insurance business must include GRMC in its offerings as part of its total package. And we don't know if next year it's going to be, I can't tell you as I'm sitting here. It might already be law. I don't know if next year they're going to go to only a single provider, which means that if Select Care were to win, then no GovGuam employees that are on Moylan's insurance will be able to keep that insurance. They'll have to switch over to Select Care. And if their doctor's not with Select Care, they'll have to switch doctors. And anybody who's with FHP would have to switch over to Select Care, and the doctors at FHP would not see those patients anymore during that contract year. So then all of the other insurance companies would have to go basically rely only on their other contracts to stay afloat and try to compete for the next year. And then in the next year, let's say FHP wins. And then all of the GovGuam employees would have to be accommodated within FHP and whatever the doctors, whatever FHP brought together for providers, affiliated providers. And then all the employees would have to migrate to the doctors that are part of FHP's group and would not. And if the bill doesn't, if the bill hadn't passed or if it's not signed into law, then nobody could use GRMC for a year. That's what the bill was about. To me, I think to them they were saying, okay, let's make sure FHP is able to be part of the GovGuam, the process for bidding for GovGuam business. But for me, FHP has already made its business approach very, very clear. They don't want to use GRMC, and I think that should be a competitive, that should be something that would be a competitive move on their part. But they might have partnered with GMH and made an alliance to freeze out GRMC. Or at least make it go belly up, and then there would be a hospital building there ready for purchase by somebody else.
Like I was saying earlier, I haven't been keeping up about what the whole battle was about. That's why I haven't been speaking up about it in the radio. But from your own perspective, how is that going to affect we, the taxpayers, in general, if we're not government employees? Because I know that there is a shared responsibility of the employer to share the expenses of the premium being paid to the insurer. Am I correct?
Yes, you know that as a taxpayer, you're paying for not only the health insurance of GovGuam employees, but also their paychecks, and that is because of the services that you are receiving from the government of Guam. And so police officers and nurses at GMH and the DPW guys who are working on the inspecting the road repaving, and the inspectors of health the health inspectors at public health, and the EPA people. If GovGuam has to offer health insurance to its full-time employees as a benefit, or it would not get people, or it would be hard to recruit people to join, to work for the government of Guam. And so it uses it as a benefit. But it also helps raise the general health on the island, and it keeps, because it's insurance, it helps make the health industry on Guam very smooth, very regular. And the problem is in people who do not have insurance, people who are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs in the tourism industry, because the tourism industry doesn't want to have full-time employees that they have to provide health insurance for. And so that's what's suppressing the market, because there are many, many, many people who are working hard and are taxpayers, and their employers do not extend health care to them as a benefit. They could just as well go away. The companies don't want to have that expense and don't find their employees worth retaining as loyal employees on their payroll. It's just if they show up for work, they'll pay them. But if they don't come into work, well, hey, they can go someplace else, but we're not going to put out any more money for these low skill or low pay workers. We can't be in business and pay for health insurance. But what's happening is that gets thrown onto GMH and public health and Medicare, Medicaid. And so The feds pick up a lot of this. They pick up maybe 60% of that. But Gov Guam taxpayers pick up the others. And on balance, it's working okay. Because if you need health care, you can get it. People who have money, they pay for it. They pay their premiums, they pay their co-pays, they pay their exclusions, they take care of their health. People who cannot afford it, they're not walking around sick, open sores, broken arm on the street, right? We have a pretty good community here. We're taking care of each other. And that's why we pay our taxes. So it's not an unusual thing even to pay for the Gov Guam employees' health insurance out of the taxes. And it's not like Gov Guam's not taking care of everybody else besides. It's a false argument, and I really resent that it's even that it's coming up that way. It's not them or us. It is us. There really is no distinction. And for any kind of argument to pop up, and it has in the Guam Daily Post, and I really resent that argument because
the reason why I haven't been keeping up with it is that because I'm a military retiree and I get free medical care, so and I don't have any dependents, so but maybe it's about time I start keeping up with it because I'm also a taxpayer too.
Yes, well, even if you try keeping up with it, there's a lot of it in the shadows. The healthcare industry is a large, important industry, and the more people who are involved in it, and the more money flushing through it, the better for everyone. And so that's what we see. We have a big enough healthcare industry on Guam to attract the investment of a hospital, a private hospital, and all these clinics like FHP, SDA, American Medical. It's to take care of us because we have enough money to pay for it. We really have. It's not a shortage. It's a fake shortage. And now it's
Isn't there a legislative move by some senators a while back to force these businesses that do not provide health insurance to their employees, to force them to make health insurance for every employee if they expect to stay in business?
Yes. But that hasn't passed, and that's another question. Let's leave that till after our break here, okay, Tom? Hang on, okay? We'll go into that in just a few moments.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back with Tom, and we'll be continuing to talk about healthcare on Guam after this.
Great news from Exchanged, Guam's #1 online and mobile remittance service to the Philippines. Get a chance to win a trip for 2 to Manila with 3 days and 2 nights accommodations at the Belmont Hotel at Resorts World Manila. Here's how to join. Download the Exchanged app or visit exchanged.me. Sign up and send money to the Philippines. You can also visit the Exchanged office inside the iConnect building in Upper Tumon. Promo ends May 2nd, 2019. Call 888-736-3 for more information. Conditions apply. Take advantage of Exchange Dollar to Remit promo. Visit exchange.me for details.
On March 9th, join Bank of Guam for the EFIT Run and Block Party to benefit Guam Cancer Care and American Cancer Society. Our Sunset 2K and 5K run will start at Chamorro Village with showtime at 4 and go time at 5. And don't forget about our block party starting at 4 o'clock, complete with food trucks, a kids zone, live entertainment, and a beer garden, so don't forget your ID. This is a bring your own water bottle event. The EFIT Run and Block Party, Saturday, March 9th. Bank of Guam, member FDIC.
Welcome back. Bob will be here in 8 days or 8 or 9 days. I guess it's going to wait until he gets over his jet lag, and also I hope not like Phineas Fogg. I hope he has calculated his the daylight savings time and all that accurately, so he doesn't say he's coming in here, but actually he's landing, like 2 hours later, after the show is already over. But that's okay. I mean, we'll play with it. We'll just deal with it as we have to. Welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, and I got Tom on the line. We were talking about health care on Guam now that that a bit of drama with the specifications for Gov Guam health insurance, employee health insurance, straightening their specifications out for the year 2020. Bids has been straightened out by the legislature. Let me let me, Tom, before we continue, there's a comment on Facebook Live from Lonnie Clark. He says, seems like having all GovGuam employees going to GMH would increase their revenue and require less of our tax dollars to operate. Now, that would actually be true, unless the GovGuam employees are going to GMH, but GMH doesn't have the services that are needed, and because of the prohibition against going to GRMC, instead of going to Dedido, you go to the Philippines. That was what was happening before GRMC was built. They built GRMC to reduce by a large amount the need to send people off island. And the health impacts of the delay or maybe ineligibility of being able to fly because of the change of pressure or whatnot, or cost, having to pay for 6 seats, and the medical team that would have to go with you. It's like hiring an air ambulance, but you're using the United flight as an air ambulance and paying that cost. Those costs are not necessary now because for some of those needs, because they're being met by GRMC. And so that's why the hospital was built. And they don't have to compete with GMH for things like obstetrics and whatnot. But we have like birthing centers. And so there's competition for the hospital with Sagumanyagu. And there could be others that are set up. I think Dr. Shea is setting up his own obstetric center and birthing center is supposed to be built. I don't know the details, but I hear about this. And that's investment in our healthcare system on island, whether it's private investment, government investment in the hospital and in public health, or the insurance companies competing for our business and then using not only on-island providers, but also off-island providers. And
so we need to help GRMC to stay alive, right?
Well, we should encourage investors on Guam to get there, to find Guam to be a good place to invest, because then GovGuam doesn't have to invest in the exact same capacity, because it exists in the community, and then health insurance helps spread out the load. When private clinics don't take MIP or Medicare or Medicaid, then we have a problem, because it shoves all of those people over to the ones who do take it. And then if it's a problem with the funding or with the reimbursement rates, then it transfers the problem over to there, and then the shortfalls, the bills are laid at the foot of the legislature. This is already difficult for any administrator or any investor in healthcare to have to deal with. It's already difficult. But add on top of it the refusal of GMH administrators who are getting paid $100,000, $106,000, $120,000, and have them refuse to become efficient and effective. And now that's waste. That's a game. There's a reason why that game exists. And as I was saying the other day, it's just like casino gambling. There is money flushing through these systems that's not accounted for. Now, I'm not saying that anybody's skimming it off, but they're able to spend it. There are expenditures being funded by the flush of loose money. And that is a distortion.
Let you go, because we're almost at the top of the hour, but whatever happened to that proposal about forcing businesses that if they're going to do business on Guam, they better have health insurance for the employees? What happened to that? There
is a law that if you have full-time employees, then you must offer them health insurance. You must cover their health insurance.
It has to be full-time, huh?
It has to be full-time, and full-time is defined as more than 36 hours. So what happens is businesses who don't want to insure their employees, they hold them at 32 hours or less. And they...
So the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor have to get involved in this, because they cannot just literally say, no, I don't want to make this guy full-time because I don't want to have health insurance for him.
They can and they do. I've seen it
Really?
directly,
The U.S. Department
up
of Labor
close.
cannot force those people those businesses to hire these employees full-time, 40 hours a week?
It's not illegal. You cannot force a business to hire someone 40 hours a week. The legislature could change the law and say it could be 32 hours a week, or it could be 28 hours a week, and then it would force more companies to cover their employees, and then they could also set rates, and they could have exclusions and all that good stuff. But thank you, Tom, for hanging with me this hour.
On the other side from other callers, all right?
Great, thank you. Thanks for hanging with me today, Tom.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. We've had Tom talking about healthcare this afternoon on Tall Tales. It's the top of the hour, time for our halftime show, so listen carefully for Fox News and what's going on in the States, and watch our halftime show online on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and we'll be back in about 8 minutes with more Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Dinner with Kim. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Trump returning to his hotel in Hanoi to prepare for what he hopes will be a productive dinner meeting tonight with the leader of North Korea. Fox's Simon Owen is live in Hanoi.
Jack, President Trump voicing cautious optimism ahead of his talks here with North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
Hopefully it's going to be successful. We'll see what happens. But he wants to do something great also.
The president has been meeting with Vietnamese leaders, calling Vietnam an example for North Korea with a fast-growing economy and friendly relations with the U.S. But to get there, Kim would likely have to give up his nuclear weapons. Jack?
Thanks, Simon. Earlier, the president and Vietnam's prime minister watched as Vietjet signed an order with Boeing. They'll buy 100 737 MAX airliners at sticker price, and Bamboo Airliners buying another 10. Those deals worth more than $21 billion. For a second straight day, tensions are flaring between India and Pakistan. India launching more airstrikes against what it says are terrorist training camps in the disputed Kashmir region. Pakistan says it has shot down 2 Indian fighter jets that crossed into Pakistani airspace. Earlier this month, there was a suicide bombing attack against Indian troops in Kashmir. Outside Los Angeles, a family tragedy. Police responding to a 911 call in Upton, California, of a child screaming. As they arrived, a 24-year-old mother dropped her young son from the second story of an apartment building, then jumped herself. Inside the apartment, police found the woman's 7-month-old daughter dead. The mother and the one-year-old son are recovering from their falls. She is likely to face murder charges. 3 people are dead, several others injured in a crash on the Long Island Railroad that police say a truck tried to beat a train to the crossing. That truck was struck by 2 trains traveling in opposite directions. This is Fox News.
Great news from Exchanged, Guam's #1 online and mobile remittance service to the Philippines. Get a chance to win a trip for 2 to Manila with 3 days and 2 nights accommodations at the Belmont Hotel at Resorts World Manila. Here's how to join. Download the Exchanged app or visit exchange.me. Sign up and send money to the Philippines. You can also visit the Exchanged office inside the iConnect building in Upper Tumay. Promo ends May 2nd, 2019. Call 888-736-34 for more information. Conditions apply. Take advantage of Exchange Dollar to Remit promo. Visit exchange.me for details.
Make the good things last longer. Get 3 more days for free on our 3-day prepaid rate plan. That's 6 days of unlimited local calls, SMS, and 1 gig of 4G LTE data per day for just $7.95. Text HS3 to 3282 from your Docomo Pacific prepaid phone to sign up today. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Chicago will have its first female African-American mayor this spring. Former federal prosecutor Lori Lightfoot finishing first in Tuesday's mayoral primary.
And of course, I want to thank those who had the courage, and let me understand that, courage to stand with our campaign against the machine.
She will face Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle in an April runoff. She finished second. Every Democrat in the House, plus 11 Republicans, voted in favor of a resolution Tuesday to cancel the president's declaration of an emergency at the U.S. southern border. The measure moves next to the U.S. Senate, where some Republicans say they will vote for it, although the president has promised a veto if it reaches his desk. The president's ex-lawyer is now an ex-lawyer. Michael Cohen officially disbarred on Tuesday while he was in Washington giving closed-door testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee. A New York court ruled that Cohen's guilty plea last November automatically stripped him of his eligibility to practice law. Spokesman for Cohen did not immediately respond to requests for comment. He is scheduled to testify before the House Oversight Committee in public on Wednesday. The United States urging the UN Security Council to condemn Venezuela's disputed President Nicolas Maduro.
Maduro's military has denied aid to the Venezuelan people. U.S. Special Representative Elliot Abrams says only Maduro means harm.
Only the regime has called in both its security forces and armed gangs.
The U.S. recognizes Juan Guaido as Venezuela's leader, but Abrams says his return may be met with danger.
It is our duty to ensure that interim President Guaido is able to return home freely and safely.
The U.S. asks nations to support sanctions on Maduro's regime and seeks a Security Council vote this week. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
In New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
At Chili's, our burgers stack up with anyone's. Handcrafted to order, smashed to lock in flavor on a toasted brioche bun. Our burgers are all kinds of perfect. Choose from the Chili's Chili, the Mushroom Swiss, the Ultimate Bacon, or you know what? We dare you to take on the Boss Burger. Loaded with smoked brisket, rib meat, jalapeno cheddar sausage, and bacon. We may have really out-burgered ourselves. Our burgers are more than a handful, served with garlic dill pickles and fries. So hurry in today and enjoy our juicy, melty, yummy, handcrafted creations. Perfection between two buns. Chili's, more life happens here.
Is it the coffee or is it that stirring music and all those waving flags and the smoke in the air and the planes flying overhead in formation? Our halftime show here on Tall Tales. Welcome back to the show. We've been talking about healthcare and the health market. And actually, we've only gotten halfway through Zami Ikadni today. But I'm gonna continue this for a bit. There was a comment. Kyle came on Facebook Live and went, "No breaks." And so I was just telling him, well, that's life in the fast lane. Got to pay the bills and keep this radio station a viable business. But, you know, with that kind of enthusiasm, I must be doing something right here. Let's go ahead and finish up my comments on this editorial from the Guam Daily Post today, entitled "Senators Pause Consideration of Special Interest Legislation." And I want to put a kind of a period on this here so I can go on to the PDN's own editorial. But this is it burns me to see the editorial board get sucked into the vortex and not separate out, stand back and take a good look at what's going on here. They don't see the need for GRMC to remain viable. so that it can continue to provide the services that it does provide. That if it wasn't there, all those patients would be up at at GMH. And right now, I know there's big signs in the emergency room over at GRMC saying if you can't pay for your services, we are required to stabilize you and have you transported. By all means, come in here. But if you are covered by Medicare, Medicaid, then by all means, please come in. We will address your medical needs with respect and with competence. But really, the press needs to let the market be. The legislature is getting itself involved in health policy and health care financing policy with Bill 30-35. And it's really hard to sort this out, whether it's a net positive or a net negative. But it certainly isn't a $100 million difference or a $15 million difference in GovGuam healthcare costs, because they themselves, the legislature and the GovGuam health negotiators this summer themselves, could themselves save $10 million by shifting more of the cost of healthcare onto the employees. They can. It's just policy. And so, but to get involved and let all this drama around a feature of the market, get everybody's panties in a bunch? Oh, really? GovGuam needs to use its own market power to shape investment and leverage its own facilities and the money that it is putting out to achieve lower costs. It has the power to require health insurance. It has the power to subsidize the required health insurance. It can create. It is able to create the market for health care on Guam because it's such a large player. It should use that power. And those senators down there are piddling around with little tiny details. And they shouldn't be doing that. They should be looking at the health care industry on Guam. And where are we? How much are we? The way that we administer it, how are we playing to win? And one thing that they are totally ignoring is the degree of waste. And waste and diversion of funds that are being paid at GMH. That's why Ken Leon Guerrero is calling for receivership of GMH, because that would clean it up. We all know there are solutions. But we also all know that that's why we went to the polls in November. To empower people to solve the problems of the community, not to stir the pot and pat themselves on the back with a job well done. And now the post-editorial board's getting sucked up into that. Anyway, and yeah, I don't expect everyone to hold all these facets, all these strands in your head at the same time. Few people can. But there are some people. There are enough people on this island that can come together and craft a rational healthcare system where the taxpayer dollars are maximized, the amount of money in our main industries is leveraged, and the investments that are being made by doctors and investors in plant, in equipment, and in facilities, and in their education is rewarded and encouraged. to the benefit of us. When we cut our finger or have a car accident, or we have to take our elderly loved one to be treated, that's what we get for it. The rest of it's just money. But we should in the public sector, be competent and conservative with our money so that we can get the most benefit. Let's see. Jesse Limtiaco says, what solution? Laughing out loud. The federal government is going to fix a problem they created? You know, they have been refusing to increase the reimbursements. First off, in the states, Medicare, Medicaid is reimbursed at 80%. On Guam, it's been fixed at 55%. And then at GMH, they're saying, we don't even trust your fee schedule, so we're only going to pay you what you were charging back in 1996 or something like that. And the fee schedule was changed in 89 when I was at the health committee at the legislature. And then that fee schedule was changed twice since, and CMMS just adjusted its rates based on the most recent, about like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, approval of the rate changes. And then this morning was another hearing at GMH for their next round of rate increase request. So these are moving targets, and yes, the feds have had a hand in shaping the way that health care is financed on Guam, especially to cover the ones who are most in need. GovGuam has its own health insurance contract for its employees, 10,000 employees, and their family members. And when you take 10,000 people and their family members and then the retirees, you have a large chunk of population covered, health care. And of course, all these well-to-do businessmen on island they have health care, they have insurance. You know, in the people who own construction companies, you know, they may not give to their employees, but they sure do give to themselves. I think H-2 workers are required to have health care, but I think they pay it out of pocket. But that's the company's own responsibility. Let's see. Jeff Kenyon says, get ready, they coming. You know, that some people want that as a solution. But as long as we're paying somebody or a number of somebodies, 106, 120,000, I think we ought to throw a harness over these people and say, mush, it's your job. Fix it now. Paycheck to paycheck. And if you can't fix it, we'll find somebody who can. Yeah, GovGuam, Jesse Limtiaco points out, GovGuam employees and retirees are taxpayers as well. Absolutely. And well paid. And they pay taxes, a good amount of taxes. So that's why I was saying it's not them versus us, which is something that the newspaper has been trying to stir up. And I resist that because it's us. It is no them versus us. It is us. We're talking about the public and the GovGuam employees. It's us. And the ones who are getting paid to manage this have got to get busy on the solutions and not just hold the position and everything is okay. I got a job. It's beyond cynical. It should be criminal, in fact. Let's go on to the PDN editorial today called If Property Tax Measure Fails, What's the Plan for Revenue Shortfall? The PDN editorial for today. Let's wet my whistle here and then get on to it. And of course, we're going to get back to healthcare at some point. Tax increases are never popular, especially when those increases hit working families and lower income brackets the hardest. And yet, that's what lawmakers in recent times have done routinely to generate revenue instead of cutting the size and cost of the government of Guam. They increased the business privilege tax, which is a hidden tax. When it goes up, prices for just about everything go up. The government rakes in more because we all pay more for goods and services, which hardest hits those least able to afford it. That's called regressive tax. Senators also had no issues with increasing the liquid fuel tax, which they said was necessary for road maintenance and repairs. But that was only needed because they routinely raided money from the Guam Highway Fund, which is supposed to be used for that purpose, to spend on other operational costs. When the price of fuel goes up, we all pay more for gas, which also increases shipping costs, which drives up the price of goods and services. That's why a tax increase in the government of Guam's fiscal 2019 budget law made sense. It raised the property tax on buildings valued at $1 million or more, which means the increase wouldn't be placed on the backs of those who can least afford it for once. Senators intended to raise property taxes on improvements of buildings valued at $1 million or more. But former Attorney General Elizabeth Barrett Anderson's legal opinion stated the language of the budget bill applies only to buildings, quote, valued at exactly $1 million, end quote. That ruling would cause an $8 million to $9 million shortfall in government revenues. That's why Bill 4 was introduced to correct the language error. But Senator Will Castro said this would place, quote, the burden of financing this government on the backs of the people of Guam, end quote. But the property tax would affect a small fraction, and those it would affect can afford it, especially considering Guam's property taxes are among the lowest in the nation. If Castro and other senators strongly object to the measure, they should share their ideas on how to cover the revenue shortfall. Oh, I found my comments from the other. So that's the editorial from the Pacific Daily News saying that, you know, if you've got an idea, then let's have it. And it's true. And the Republicans, senators in the legislature have made a big deal of this today, having a press conference and saying we stand four square against raising taxes, carving out a position that was already decided in the last legislature. And yeah, you may not want taxes to go up, but it's which kinds of taxes do you want to rise? Do you want progressive taxes to go up, or do you want regressive taxes to go up? When the regressive taxes went up, the business privilege tax went up, prices were raised to cover the tax. And those prices will never come down, even if they roll back the tax, the percentage tax. And then GovGuam will still get money because the prices are higher than they were before. And so instead of paying a higher amount in order to cover a 5%, the price went up to cover the 5% tax, and then the price stays there at a 4% tax. And there's a little more. But the businesses make out. Now, the projection was, for this budget year, was to have that revenue. And that's about $9 million. And you might have heard me earlier say, we need to be reducing the cost of the government of Guam in $10 million chunks this year and especially next year, or we aren't going anywhere. Nothing is changing. And right now, I mean, isn't the most recent expectation that the military buildup is sort of slammed on hold because of the diversion of the identification of those funds have been what will be used to build a border wall? Wow. And you know, it's now here. Let's see. Joe Cruz. Oh, let's see. Wow, I got a lot of comments here. What is this? Ryan Lapp says, I'm here for the couch auction. And then, Randy Watson is saying something I can't say on the air, and then they're talking about the couch. I don't know what happened here. Ray sent me for the couch. And Stephanie Ann says, do you oppose raising the price of tea? And Jesse Limchiako said, Trump tax cuts saved corporations 14% this year. Let's see. Can I incorporate all of those thoughts into what I'm talking about? Let's see. I don't know about the couch. Somebody explain to me what this discussion is about the couch. But when Stephanie Ann says, do I oppose raising the price of tea? Or, what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? If all the prices go up and then they still roll the tax back, the prices still went up for everybody on all items. Because to cover the 1% increase in the business privilege tax. And if it doesn't need to be paid anymore, the prices still won't come down because already businesses know you'll come in and pay it. So it's a windfall for business. Jesse Limchiako talking about Trump tax cuts saving corporations 14% this year. Is that nationwide or locally? And what are they doing with that money? Are they using it to buy back stock? Are they using it to invest in other areas? Are they using it to increase? Are they using it to extend their health insurance benefits to their employees? Or are they doing it to benefit? Are they paying bigger dividends back to their investors? There's no way of knowing how that money is being used. Stephanie Ann asks, isn't that inflation? Absolutely, it's inflation. Watch what our crack economist down at the Department of Labor, and he does the Consumer Price Index for the government of Guam. Look at the numbers on the Consumer Price Index for Guam. When Guam increased the taxes, boom, up went everything. In consumer goods, retail market goods. And it hasn't gone up for those of you who are bringing in things in the mail because customs and quarantine hasn't quite caught up with the use taxes being attached to commodities being brought in from the States through the U.S. mail. But, oh, my goodness, all kinds of stuff going on here. And then, let's see. Joe Cruz still talking about real leather or synthetic couch. And then Jesse Limchiako says business privilege tax was raised in 2004 to 6% and then rolled back to 4%, and prices still went up. When the tax goes up, the businesses raise their prices so that they can cover the additional amount they have to pay in taxes based on their gross sales. That's the formula. You pay the tax, you pay for the goods, and the retailer pays the tax. But now the retailer and you both know that's how much the goods are costing to buy at the store. When the tax is rolled back, the prices don't go back because there isn't enough of a competitive market on Guam to roll prices back. They're going to stay there because there's no pressure to bring them down. It's not like you can go across the street and get cheaper cucumbers or go to the next gas station and get cheaper gas because the market is too small to operate that way. It just ratchets up because it just means that we're going to spend less on movies and more on potato chips. Or we're going to go out less to a restaurant to eat, and we're going to buy more meat in the supermarket and take it home and cook it. It just means we're going to shift our lifestyle. And so it doesn't. It's inflation, but it also makes changes in the economy generally. Yeah, this is sort of more my field, economics, and I do not subscribe, as some people do, to the primacy of economics establishing value in our lives. Our lives are not about money. But if you go to school and you to think about how money works in a broad sense, then you get, you stay up nights. You get gray hair thinking about some of the things that lawmakers do. So I'm gonna take a look at these two, and let's see, for the Zami Katni portion of the show, which of these editorials rises to the level of deserving a compliment. And I would say it would be the PDN's editorial. If property tax measure fails, what's the plan for the revenue shortfall? The legislature is just, this is supposed to be just housekeeping. There was a decision made, let's get on with it. And as you heard our own Bob Klitzkie say on this very program, it doesn't matter. He disagrees with the former Attorney General. When you say an amount, this, and then you go back to the debate, and you can say that for sure what was intended was $1 million or more. That's the legislative intent. You go forth and you enforce the law. But who's refusing to enforce the law? The Department of Revenue and Taxation. And there's nothing new about that, because that's been going on with respect to other taxes. So there's a consistency here. And it just gives some of the actors in the market a bit more time to collect the money or to change their prices, and then they will eventually have to pay the tax. And so I'm going to award the Blue Star. Where's my pen? It's here somewhere. To the Pacific Daily News. Pacific Daily News for if property tax measure fails, what's the plan for revenue shortfall? Man, it took us a while to get through this portion of today's show, the Zami Katni. But after we take this break here, it is time for our seventh inning stretch. We're going to have Excavating the Point and the Card. So do stay tuned to Tall Tales.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Laddystone Entertainment and the stations of Choice Broadcasting present a roaring 20s party. Great Gatsby style. Get dressed up and party with the Miss and Mrs. Kirby Guam contestants. Saturday, March 2nd at Roots Bar and Grill. Tickets are $10 or $15 at the door with one free drink. Special thanks to Pitbull Empire, Local Promos, One Punch Media, The Hive, and Island Lux.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
I've got a question for you. Of all the jobs you've held in your career, which one was, or perhaps is, the most important for you, and why? I'm Jerry Roberts, and I want you to think about this today. Then at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about those special jobs.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
And welcome back to The Point. I have our seventh inning stretch. For anybody who's been at baseball games, that's you kind of look forward to that. Stretch your legs and take a minute to and let the audience stretch your legs. But welcome back to the show. It's about 5:32, and we're in the last half hour of today's Tall Tales. Again, I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. He'll be back in 8 days. 8 days. We've been together for a while, and I'm loving it. I hope you're enjoying it too. Let's go to Excavating the Point. I should make some kind of like a excavator crunching coral or something, carving it off the the reef line over there in along Route 15 up on Sammy Rock area in Jigo. Governor to testify before congressional committees on the state of Guam. Guam's not a state, but you know, that's the headline in the PDN today on page 1. And as I read this article, it was full of all kinds of information about what our governor is doing this week. But there was one thing that really popped out at me. And I think it deserves an article all of its own. Can you guess what that might be? I'm sure you read the article. It was long. I'm going to drop down and read to you a paragraph, which is the third paragraph from the end. Well, the one before says, the governor's office on Monday evening gave an update of the meetings that Leon Guerrero had in California, New York, and Washington, D.C. the past week, as well as hearings this week. And that's what the article is all about. But here's the next paragraph, and that's the one that really stuck out at me. In the statement, Adelup said Leon Guerrero spent much of last week in San Francisco and New York meeting with credit rating agencies Moody's and Standard & Poor's, laying out her philosophies for governance, prioritization of stabilizing government finances, and collecting taxes. Did you hear it? I'll repeat. Laying out her philosophies for governance, prioritization of stabilizing government finances, and collecting taxes. Now, over the past week, we've been talking about this transition report that came out on February 7. And while it was co-authored by Dr. Mary Okada from the Guam Community College, a person I hold in very high regard, and Dr. Laura Sauder Betances, who has a very deep knowledge of the way the government of Guam has worked in the past and can work in the future. Plus, there was an article that had a group, the board, sort of other people who were helping to put this together, including Dan Tidinko. Good heads, really good heads. But there was a disclaimer that this was what they were recommending. The transition report was a recommendation to the governor on how to lead, how to move forward. Right? This is what we've been talking about over the past little while, except when other things start popping up like GRMC and GMH and, you know, the OPA report and, you know, people getting run over in the streets and whatnot. And cops can't close the cases on hit and runs. Okay? I'll read it again. Laying out her philosophies for governance, prioritization of stabilizing government finances, and collecting taxes. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero is in the States talking about her philosophies of moving this government forward. And she's telling them, but she hasn't told us. I am impressed by the silence. Why there aren't people just asking, so what are your philosophies of governance and prioritization of stabilizing government finances and collecting taxes? What are your directions to your employees, to your directors that you've just put in? She's telling them, and she hasn't told us. There should be some people really concerned about that. Because maybe it's a sounding board. Maybe they're saying, well, you can't do that. Maybe it's a necessary consultation to make sure that something she's planning is not going to violate her the government of Guam's own representations that have been made in the past about how it will proceed. Now, I think it's okay. I just find it disturbing that she would not have had made that statement directly to the people of Guam first. That's just me. But that's in excavating the point. That's today's article in the PDN, page 1, Governor to testify before congressional committees on state of Guam. So all the rest of that stuff is, go do it. It's that one part that really jumped out at me that, to me, is the real story. And maybe there should be a story just on that. And that's something that the media can do. Those that are in the media who pride themselves in being journalists and getting out there and getting a story for us. How about getting that story? How about people at Adeloop releasing that statement? Or even better yet, set our governor in front of a camera in the States and have her deliver it and then release it with her own face and her own words and looking straight at us and saying, this is my philosophy of governance. This is my, this is my philosophy of governance, my prioritization of stabilizing government finances and collecting taxes. This is what I intend to do. This is the plan that was called for in yesterday's PDN editorial. Where's the plan? That's a plan. Why are we reading about it on the third from last paragraph in the paper? And so, did you all see this article about, in yesterday's PDN, it was a USA Today article, and it's on page 12 in yesterday's PDN. All-male military draft ruled unconstitutional. A federal judge in Texas has declared that the all-male military draft is unconstitutional, ruling that, quote, the time has passed for a debate on whether women belong in the military. The decision deals the biggest legal blow to the selective service system since the Supreme Court upheld the draft in 1981. In Rostker versus Goldberg, the court ruled that the male-only draft was, quote, fully justified because women were ineligible for combat roles. But U.S. District Judge Gray Miller ruled late Friday that while historical restrictions on women serving in combat, quote, may have justified past discrimination, end quote, men and women are now equally able to fight. In 2015, the Pentagon lifted all restrictions for women in military service. The case was brought by the National Coalition for Men, a men's rights group, and two men who argued the all-male draft was unfair. When we had the Equal Rights Amendment, that's what that meant. The amendment to the Constitution, you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. It meant that everything that the United States does in its name, in the name of its citizens, in the name of the government, all government of the United States, employees and officers and elected officials are required to follow the Constitution, including its amendments. And that means can't discriminate against women, guys. Gals, don't discriminate against women. Treat them equally. Equal responsibility, equal duty, equal opportunity to shine. So I'm looking forward to hearing about how maybe they'll call it not a draft or selective service. Maybe it won't be quite so selective anymore, but it'll be national service. And maybe it will not be only for the military. Maybe it'll be for public health service. Maybe it'll be for fish and wildlife service. Maybe it'll be for forestry service. You know, there are many services that the government provides that could use draftees as cheap labor and participation in our government in areas where we need services to be manned and there are not enough recruits. I mean, you know, national emergencies, you know, national priorities. Let's go to the card. We've got some time here. And this was suggested by Bob Klitzkie. And he was asking whether MSNBC versus Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is MSNBC now taking on the beauty queen of the freshman class of the Democrats in the Congress? The article is Scarborough slams Ocasio-Cortez for not opening New York office. Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough Tuesday criticized freshman Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for not yet having a local office open for constituents, saying she's paying more attention to her national image. Quote, "When I first heard this story, I thought it was a hoax," end quote. Scarborough, a former Republican congressman, told ex-Democratic Representative Claire McCaskill, now an MSNBC political analyst, quote, "I didn't think it was possible to serve in Congress without local constituent offices." He added that, quote, "Like you, like me, like everybody I know at least, focused on setting up that local office first, because that's where the rubber meets the road," end quote. He said constituents care more about what's happening locally, not on a national scale. Quote, "Nobody came up to me 10 years later and said, 'Hey, thank you so much for that press conference you had about the flat tax. Thank you so much for that press conference you had about getting rid of 4 cabinet agencies,' said Scarborough. Quote, 'It was, Congressman, you saved our farm.'" McCaskill said she agrees with Scarborough but still complimented Ocasio-Cortez, even though she's criticized the New York Democrat in the past. Quote, "I'm not chastising her. I'm not criticizing her," McCaskill said. Quote, "I'm saying don't miss out on this part of the job. You'll be sorry if you do." Does this remind you of anything? Does this remind you of anything? Let's see. Here's a headline in the Guam Daily Post today. Let's see if this resonates with you. Storm damage delays Guam District Office opening. Delegate Michael Siniklis said the opening of his Guam District Office has been pushed back to March 18 because the office had some water damage from Super Typhoon Wutip. The Guam office was supposed to open March 1. Quote, "Due to water damage to flooring and walls as a result of Typhoon Wutip, the congressional office will unfortunately need to delay opening to March 18, end quote, Siniklis stated. The office is located along Marine Corps Drive in Hagåtña, a few buildings from the old office of former delegate Madeline Bordallo. While the office is not ready to open, constituents are advised to contact Siniklis' 24-hour hotline at 1-844-GUAM-671 or 1-844-482-6671. Interesting. You may have heard me mention once upon a time, I served as here in the Guam District Office under Robert Underwood as the Chief of Constituent Services. People would come in with needing to see their congressman, but of course, Robert Underwood's office and where he does his daily work was in D.C. And then his local office, he would come back to meet with constituents and with local leaders, and he would come back 10 times a year or so. Same thing with Madeline when she was in office. Same thing with Ben Blas when he was in office. Same thing with Mr. Wampat when he was in office. The Guam District Office is the one where the constituents come to see their congressman. They don't have to fly to D.C. to see him. And it's open every day because it's the Guam District Office for our congressional representative. And it's not going to be open until March 18 because of water damage from a typhoon that I think it blew down Bob Cruz's banana tree into his driveway. I saw a picture of that. Man. Anyway, thanks to Bob, our own Bob Klitzkie, for sending me that article about Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough slamming Ocasio-Cortez for not opening her New York office. Because it is not part of the job to leave your constituents hanging, waiting, or let's use modern means of keeping in touch with each other. Just go to my page, call me on the phone, send me an email. But I don't think I have to see you in person. I already know your problem is not one that needs to be addressed in person. How does he know? How would he know? When I went to work, I had no idea who was going to walk in the door. But I had to be ready to catch him. Whatever kind of a ball was batted at me, I had to catch it for the congressman and deal with it as effectively as possible. And a lot of it was just sit down and listen. Give you an example. A man who hadn't received his medal from World War II, his Purple Heart, since World War II. We're talking about 1994, 1993. Hadn't received his Purple Heart yet. Why not? How about a widow of a career federal employee who was unable to make heads or tails of the paperwork coming at her concerning her survivor's benefits? It didn't take ringing the congressman's phone. It just needed somebody who was going to be competent to assist in federal matters. It's 10 minutes to 6. Thanks for tuning in to Tall Tales this afternoon. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back for our final go-round.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Attention homeowners, MRE solar energy systems now come with battery storage for zero money down. This means that your home will have power even when the island power isn't available, like during power outages or during and after storms. The inconvenience of not having power for your home is a thing of the past. It's solar with battery storage exclusively by Micronesia Renewable Energy. Don't be left in the dark. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
If I were a horse, I'd be at the gate. I'm Daryl Taggarty. I'm sitting in for Bob Klitzkie this afternoon on Tall Tales, and Bob will be back from his vacation in 8 days. So do stay tuned. I do hope I've kept you entertained and informed this afternoon here on Tall Tales. I just got a Facebook Live comment from Don Edquilani, and I just copied it. I'm going to think about this over the next day and try to figure out how we can deal with this. Let me see if I can. I'll go ahead and you think about it too, and we'll come back tomorrow afternoon and discuss this. Don says, town halls and round tables needed to determine what is the appropriate, accurate perspective regarding the combined professional vocational training at GCC and Guam Trades Academy, and that we, Guam, are not capable to produce several hundred Guam residents, let alone several thousand Guam residents, construction workers, needed to replace the requisite yet missing visa H-2 H-2B visa construction workers. The result is that we, Guam, let's see. The result, we, Guam, dropped the Guam economic ball, the Guam infrastructure economic stimulus cycle. In other words, $0 for economic stimulus for several years that would have benefited us, Guam, with our everyday life. Standard of life, cost of living, where is Guam's economic boom? We should be in the middle of it. Don, you've actually put your finger right on the pulse of something. And that is, even if we don't have an economic boom, we don't have to wait to get started on an economic boom. We can invest in education. We can promote through advertising and outreach and constructive articles having to do with the careers that are available. We can get people to move into these career areas, and we have time to train them. If there are delays because the amount of construction activity hasn't happened, then it is a good time to train people. Now, we have had this freeze on H-2B workers for how long? There's been a lot of delay. It's not a surprise. What is a surprise is that the companies that have been trying to get H-2B workers have not either, or they haven't raised salaries. They're keeping the salaries down to at the level of H-2B starting workers. There are people in construction trades working private sector on Guam. They're out there. They're working. Renovating houses, doing electrician, they're rewiring houses, they're renovating buildings, and they're not H-2 workers. But they're paid a little bit more. Guam Department of Labor still advertises at the old rates, at the posted federal rates for starting masons and electricians, iron workers, landscapers. All you really got to do is pay someone a decent salary, and you'll have takers. Why toil in an occupation where you're dirty and hot if you're not going to make a decent living at the end of the day? It's about money. People will train. People will go into those trades. And there are classes available. But they really need to ramp up. And we can spend money very efficiently on education. How many millions do we already spend on education? How effective is it? For the college bound, yeah, it's pretty effective. How many of what's the percentage of people who are either graduate or fail to graduate? Of each of the cohort, the age cohort that reaches the age of 18, with or without a degree, high school degree, what's the percentage of that 18-year-old cohort going to college? I'm happy for those who do. And there are plans, there are programs, and there are funds, and there are incentives for them to go to college. Great. What about all the rest of them? And equally, girls and boys equally, because of the Equal Rights Amendment. And I know I've seen them in this being discussed in Trades magazine put out by the Guam Trades Academy. I know they're trying, but it's got to be, the effort has to be doubled, tripled. Actually, the Guam Contractors Association needs to do something about changing its reliance on H-2 workers. Because if they don't, they're going to start getting H-2 workers, but they're not going to work for the wages that Filipino workers will work for. They'll work for higher wages, and they'll come from different countries, and we'll have to just sit and accommodate them. And again, we're going to have the same conversation about our sons and daughters and people who are having midlife career changes, people who want to get out of what they're doing now and into something else, not able to get into the industry because of the wages are set too low, artificially low, in order to accommodate military construction projects that have been already bid out and costed out. Alrighty. Thank you for hanging with me this afternoon here on Tall Tales. I'm Darrell Taggarty. I'll be back with you tomorrow afternoon. And I recommend that you tune in tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock for Ray Gibson and the Ray Gibson Show here on The Point. Have a very good evening, everyone.